Shop at KendoStar if you want me to keep making these videos. So you could skip it again, didn't you? Well, no, that's it. From now on, I'm starting every video maybe like that, or maybe next time I'll put it halfway through. So watch out, you guys that are trying to skip my KendoStar plug. Look, seriously, KendoStar is what makes these videos possible. It's what makes the channel possible. So yeah, if you want me to keep doing it, make sure you're shopping at KendoStar. Okay, we've got some fantastic questions. We're going to jump right into them. But before we do, I'm just going to mention something, one real quick thing. Just circling back to KendoStar there a little bit, but it's a question I'm getting a lot at the moment, obviously with the UK sort of separating itself from the European Union. I don't want to say the B word on YouTube. I don't know what happens if I do that. I might spontaneously combust. I don't know. But lots of people are asking me about, obviously, what's going to happen with import taxes and customs and stuff like that. If they're based in the European Union, because it's changed since it was last year. But there's good news. The way we're dealing with that, I put a post up on Facebook. If you don't, if you haven't seen it, it's in the early access group. And basically, we lowered all the prices because now you don't have to pay VAT on the stuff you buy, which you used to. All right, instead you pay it on import. So we actually lowered all the prices. It was something we were doing gradually throughout the year, so we've lowered them all at different stages. But you'll find that most of the products on KendoStar now are cheaper than they were sort of a year ago. So everybody benefits, not just people in the EU. But yeah, that's the first thing. And secondly, we've also added a new feature for customers in the European Union that can that allows you to pay import costs at the point of order. So you can just you can get it out of the way, and it's not a massive fee. I'm sure it's cheaper to do it that way actually than well, it depends, of course, but it'll essentially make it a little bit more hassle-free for you. So you can still order from KendoStar. You still don't have to worry about paying import tax and VAT. I mean, the VAT you had to pay anyway. It's just now you don't pay it at the point of purchase unless you opt to. And if you do, you won't have to pay it at the point of import. Okay, it's the same as what it was before in lots of ways. It's just done in a different order now. All right, but like I say, we've got this feature now so that you can pay it upfront instead. We won't be putting a European branch out, so people stop asking me that. It's not going to happen. It isn't logistically viable. It would just result in a massive increase in the prices that we have to put out to account for the cost of doing that. So I think this is the cheapest and best way for everyone to do it, and it gives you a bit more flexibility as well. All right, and if it goes well, we might implement something similar for people in other parts of the world as well. Okay, so welcome back to the video if you skipped ahead this far, but you shouldn't have done because that was pretty important info, especially if you're in Europe. But anyway, let's get on with these questions, eh? Hi, Andy. I recently saw your Gyaku-Do Waza video. Thank you for this series. It's great. No, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I have a follow-up question. When applying semi in Jodan, I often see my opponent in Seigan collapse their kamae by pulling their hands in and to the left side of their body, with the left elbow pointing behind them, and then basically duck behind the shinai to their right side to avoid the men strike that they think is coming. Is this a proper opening for Gyaku-Do for the Jodan player? This generally leaves an opening big enough to make solid contact, but I wouldn't consider it as open as what I call a 3-point block that you show as the proper opening in the video. I was once told there's no true opportunity to strike door when your opponent's armpit is closed, which is why I ask. Thanks. Okay, so great question. Great question. So this is based off the video I did about Gyaku-Do. Gyaku-Do is when you strike the opposite side. It's supposed to be called Hidari-Do. Hidari means left. Gyaku means opposite, because you hit the left side of the opponent or the opposite side to what you normally hit. The correct term is actually Hidari-Do, but everyone says Gyaku-Do, so I say Gyaku-Do as well. Yeah, so one thing I said in there is that it's really important to have the right opportunity to strike Gyakudo when you strike that side. They have to be sort of fully broken and fully in a defensive posture. It can't just be a kind of lucky shot. You have to have defeated them and then going this way and then smash. You can do it, and that's the 3-point block that you're talking about, the Sampo Mamori, which is where they try to defend their kote, their men, and their door at the same time. That's why it's called 3-point block. Now, in the case of Jodan, which is different kamae, normally the kamae we use is Chudan no kamae, the middle kamae, middle stance where you have the shinai in front of you. Jodan is where they hold it over the head. And you're asking that. Let me see if I can get this right now. Okay, so seigan is another word for Chudan no kamae. And some people use it to describe the Chudan no kamae you take versus Jodan, which is where instead of holding the shinai in the center of your opponent's body, you hold it slightly to your right, as if it's pointing to their kote or that sort of area, their left kote. So yeah, seigan is another word for that. For some people use the word seigan to mean just Chudan no kamae. The official ZNKR term is Chudan no kamae, and against Jodan it's Jodan ni taisuru Chudan no kamae. but you know, that's what we're talking about, okay, when we say seigan, especially in this particular situation. They collapse their kamae by pulling their hands in and to the left side of their body with the left elbow pointing. I'm having trouble here. No, thank you, Siri. Left elbow pointing behind them and duck behind the shinai. So they're kind of going like this. So they go from here and they go kind of like this. And I'm going off screen. But like this, I think, is what you're talking about. All right. And then, of course, they're not quite like this, but they're kind of like this because they think you're coming this way over for the men. So they're only really thinking of blocking here. Yes, it is. Yeah, of course. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that there's no true opportunity to strike door when the opponent's armpit is closed. I don't think that's necessarily true, to be honest. Though it is a good general point, and I think there are some kind of clear exceptions to that, and what you describe is certainly one of them. What it really comes down to is the whole flow of the ippon itself, what happens before, during, and after the situation, and if you've really kind of defeated them before you make the strike. That's the kind of thing. You might find that it's not even the best choice to go for Gyaku-Do, even though it seems like the most obvious. If they're not fully over this way, then actually their kote is quite open for a start, because they're kind of doing this, right? Doing this. So the kote is open for a start. Secondly, you might find something like if you watch the video about how to beat a blocker, a lot of that stuff's perfectly applicable to Jodan as well. So if I was doing Jodan, and I don't do Jodan, but if I was doing Jodan, my opponent's like this, I'd probably look at coming down this way as if I was going to go kote and do some kind of katsugi men. You might find as well that would be quite effective too. So I think there's lots of routes you could do against an opponent like that. But going back to your original question before I go too far off topic, striking Gyaku-Do in that situation theoretically could certainly be considered ippon, yes. But it depends on exactly what happens when you pull it off. All right. Okay, next one. I'm very interested in the Kachi uniform set. Any chance you can rock them in future presentations? Well, I don't think it'd be a good idea for me to wear it in Kendo RANT, because you wouldn't be able to see it properly. It's a fantastic uniform. You will absolutely love it. It is brilliant. It is by far our best synthetic uniform yet, especially the hakama. The hakama are just great. If you want to see what it looks like, the recent instructional videos, the one that I just talked about doing Gyaku-Do, the one about Suriage Men, for example, I'm wearing it in that, if I remember rightly. The hakama might be a prototype, but even if it was the prototype, it was the one that we decided on, so it's the same as the actual one. It just doesn't have the tag in. And looking at the video, it's like a little bit short for me. So it's before we adjusted the sizing, the size charts. But it is that's how the uniform looks. And if you ask me, I think it looks great. It looks quite kind of tidy, and like I say, it's super comfortable to wear. I love wearing it, and it's really easy to look after too. Next one, suggestion to Andy. In future Kendo instructional videos, name and talk a bit about the products you and your partner are using for the video. Could be a seamless integrated replacement to the pre-video KendoStar plug. Okay, I like this because I've actually thought about doing this before, and I've actually even gone as far as filming it before. So a lot of the previous videos we've done, I've actually filmed that sort of thing where I've introduced the kit that I'm wearing and that my partner's wearing. And I don't know, it just felt a little bit out of place when I did it, but I'll definitely give it more consideration. But yeah, I mean, because probably some of you cheeky lot out there skip my little KendoStar plug at the start and the finish. Maybe I might have to start doing something a little bit like that. What you got to realize, right, is I know I plug KendoStar a lot. I know I do, but it's something I'm super passionate about, obviously. KendoStar's my website, of course. But it is also how I feed my family. It's how I feed my kids. It's how I make this channel and how I can make all of this possible. Stuff like our online cake, or none of that stuff will be possible without support from you guys shopping at KendoStar. So it is super important. Like, unlike a lot of burger companies out there, like, this isn't like a part-time thing for me. Like, I don't do this as well as another sort of real job. This is everything. We're not that kind of level, you know. We've got a full-on company here with staff and, you know, massive stock and stuff like that. You know, it's a pretty big enterprise, all things considered. So it needs that sort of push, because otherwise, you know, the ability to do all this sort of thing becomes a little bit threatened. So that's why I do it. But yeah, I like the idea of maybe talking a bit about what we're using in the video, because again, it allows you, like the previous question, it allows you to sort of see a little bit like what it looks what it looks like in in actual practice, eh? So yeah, maybe we'll do that. It won't be in the next few videos because I've already filmed them, but yeah, maybe in the next batch that I film, maybe we'll do that. Next one, in the idol, there are a few different ways to tie the sageo. When you did your kata embu with Bennett Sensei, how did you tie it? Also, is there a video of that embu? Is there a video? No, there's no video of that ember. There's a photo, like from after we did it, where we sort of stood next to the big banner with our names on. I think that's on my Facebook somewhere. I might dig it out and post it in the group, in the early access group, if people are interested to see it. It's a bit weird because, like, it says like I think Alec was. I think Bennett Sensei was the Uchitachi. So it says like Uchitachi, and then it says Bennett Sensei, and then it says Nanadan, Kyoshi Nanadan, something like that. And it says Fisher Andrew for me. It says Fisher Sensei, and because they put that, and then it says Yondan. It's a pretty big gap. Like, so it's years ago, right? So. Anyway, about how I tied the sageo. The sageo is the string the cord that comes with a katana on the saya. The saya is the scabbard. And I don't remember that well, but I expect I did it the only way I can remember how to do it, which was you obviously put the katana through your hakama. And I only had the hakama. I don't think I was wearing an obi because I don't wear an obi for Kendo. And then sort of looped the sageo was untied. I looped it around the back of the saya, back around the front, and then over to my right hip sort of area, and tied it to the himo of my hakama there, using a sort of knot that's similar to the type of knot you use for your door himo. I think, if I remember right, that's probably how I did it. Next one. Sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat today. I don't know if you've noticed, I keep coughing, so apologies for that. When we smile, our facial muscles and our whole body relax. I often hear that I should relax more my shoulders. Is it okay to have a small smile when practicing in the dojo? Of course it is. Of course it's okay to smile whilst you're practicing kendo. I smile all the time. But on a serious point on that specific thing, and I expect and I understand that this is something of a sort of jovial question. I get that. But to take a little bit of a serious point on it, if it is indeed true that we relax our whole body relaxes when we smile, which I can imagine it does, I think that's more related to the emotion that you feel when you smile, the sort of feeling of being happy, rather than the physical act of smiling. So I think you have to. What you might be better doing is sort of doing something a little bit akin to Peter Pan and think happy thoughts, and instead of making you fly, maybe it'll relax your shoulders. Next one. Hey Andy, I've seen Tenugui caps online, kind of like the medieval arming cap. Are these a thing, and what do you think? They might be a thing for kids, but I don't recommend them. Let's tie our Tenugui properly, eh? I don't like that idea, just wearing some sort of cap, to be honest. I know it's a little bit, and people, I think you touch on a good point there, and this is going to be a little bit of a veer off again, but hey, this is Kendo rant, right? Every now and again, the discussion comes up about should we modernize the Kendo equipment and the Borg and stuff like that, and I've done a video about this already, but I'm not really that up for super modernizing it. Now, we do modernize materials with like stuff for the inside of the padding and stuff like that. But in terms of the design, like using like Velcro instead of Himo, and using like sort of shock plastics instead of cotton and stuff like that, or like some sort of polymer or something for instead of the mengane and all this sort of thing. I hear it a lot, but I'm not really up for pushing it in that direction, and that's because I actually think that the culture and history of Kendo is connected, and it's inseparable from the equipment that we use, the Boga, the Shinai, the Tenugui. And I think it's important that we continue to practice the traditions of how to properly wear and use our equipment, and I think the Tenugui is one of those. Now, I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with in the beginning, and I was very much the same at the beginning of my Kendo journey, was struggling to tie my Tenugui properly, because it takes some practice. It does, but it'll come. And it's honestly, I mean, I've been guilty of folding my Tenugui into a little hat, which you can do. There's a way you can do that, which is for kids really as well. But like, I've done it, like I sometimes still do it. So I'm saying one thing and I do something else, but I mean, it's still a normal Tenugui. You could tie it the normal way. I do it sometimes. The reason I do it is like if I'm at a seminar, I'm giving away my tips here, right? So like if I'm at a seminar or something and there's like a sensei and I want to be at the front of the queue, and I get my men on first, I'll fold my Tenugui into a little hat before we start, so that when it comes to men's gear, I just whip it on and then I can get my men tied and I'm faster than everyone. That's a little cheeky trick that I do. But for the most part, no, I think the traditional way of tying the Tenugui is something that's part of learning Kendo and is part of the Kendo experience. Next one, currently reading a book written by Sensei Bennett titled Kendo, Culture of the Sword. I've got that over there, I think. He talks about his beginnings in the Kendo art. Any thoughts to why senseis would push students to the extremes with such a drop rate as they enter collegiate or near graduation of college? I know that the culture comparison from Japan to the States across the pond from you is vastly different. Is it possible that the respect factor is that much of a driving factor, which I see a severe lack of with people I interact with in my area in general? Well, all right. So I think what you're asking about here is like, why are the senseis like pushing the especially the high school students so hard, only for them to sort of drop out later on, especially when they get to sort of high sort of college, university. And it's it's not like that everywhere, right? It's not like that everywhere. But what this is related to is that there's a fundamental difference between the general, how can I put this? The general sort of mental approach towards Kendo, or attitude towards Kendo, in particularly Japan. Wouldn't surprise me if it's similar in some other countries like Korea as well, where Kendo has quite a long history. But I can only speak for Japan because I lived there. But in Japan, and certainly in Europe, and probably in the US as well, in my limited experience of practicing Kendo in the US, in the Kendo in Japan is not practiced as a pastime or a hobby, or as even as an extracurricular activity. I mean, it is an extracurricular activity, but Kendo is not practiced in the hope of it being something that's enjoyable. And most people don't start Kendo through choice. And once they start, they don't get the option to quit. Now, that's changing a little bit recently, as more parents in Japan of younger children are adopting more westernized ideas towards parenting. But Kendo is generally, the pattern is people will start Kendo when they're 6 years old, when they start primary school or elementary school. And that's because when kids start elementary school at 6 years old, in addition to their school education, they are generally not expected, but it's common that their parents will look to put them into something called a naraigoto, or I guess an extracurricular activity is the best translation, but a thing to learn. And it's often a piano or a musical instrument, or it could be calligraphy, or it could be some other sort of sports. It could be football. It could be football being soccer to people that don't speak the Queen's English. You know, it could be anything like that. But it's not considered like entertainment, like at all. So they're expected to do it. It's like I said, it's called naraigoto, and narao means to learn. So it's a thing for them to learn, not for them to enjoy. And then what happens is, you know, they go through that process right through to being adults, which is 18. So most of the time they're expected to continue that all the way through, and they often they'll do it through the junior high school, and then they might stop at after primary school, even elementary school. And in junior high school, though, they'll then be expected to do a different one by many parents. This isn't across the board. It's just a popular pattern, shall we say. So there's an expectation on the senseis to push the students to the extreme, because that's part of the education that Kendo is there to offer. And if they don't, they could be perceived to be not properly giving the kids the education that they are expected to. That's definitely a thing. And especially if it's in a school where Kendo is quite an important part of like the students' kind of reason for being at the school. Like, for example, there's some schools that offer Kendo scholarships, so the kids are there to do Kendo, and then they're expected to go on to do Kendo at university, and then hopefully find a job that's somewhat Kendo related, generally like in the police or something like that, or like a school teacher. So the senseis push them to the extremes because the idea is that they have to go through those hardships and come out of the other side in order to forge themselves as resilient and respectful human beings. And that's kind of part of what the concept of Kendo is and entails. And if the senseis don't do that for fear of them quitting, they're kind of not not adhering to that, and some traditionalists would say that they're not going in the right direction. Now that doesn't translate to Kendo in the West, because we don't start Kendo on that same trajectory, and we don't do so under the same pretenses, so it's wrong to expect the same from Western practitioners. But it's a very different environment doing Kendo in Japan, because of how Kendo is considered as a method of personal improvement rather than any kind of sport, or not even sport, but it's not even supposed to be fun. All right, it's not even supposed to be fun. It is, but it is fun, but for some of us, but it's not, it doesn't exist to provide entertainment, for want of a better term. Okay, this is the last one. Hopefully not too late. Can you do a tutorial of how to do suburi with 2 shinai? How to hold both shinai with appropriate grip, and how to do tenuichi while gripping both shinai. Okay, let me grab some shinai so I can demonstrate what we're talking about. Okay, so I've got a couple of shinai here. So what you're talking about is something that you sometimes see, especially in Japan, where people take 2 shinai like this, and they'll hold them together like that, and then they'll start, I haven't got the room to do it, but they'll start doing suburi holding 2 shinai this way, all right? Like this, okay? So the reason people do that is to do some suburi with something that feels heavy, so that then when they switch back to doing with 1 shinai, the shinai feels a little bit lighter. So people often do it just before a match, a shiai, or a tournament or something like that, just for that reason. It's not really a tutorial. It's not something I massively recommend people doing all the time. It's something that people just do for a little bit, just before going onto the court, really, just to make the shinai feel a little bit lighter. To hold them, you just put one on top of the other, literally, like that, and then you just grip them together, and then. The thing is you can't hold the shinai properly while doing it, because it's such an odd shape. You just can't do it. It's not possible. And you can't do proper tenuichi either. So you just have to kind of compromise and swing away. Because like I said, the idea is really just to get that little bit of extra weight whilst you sort of warm up a bit before going on the court. So instead of doing that, you're better off with a suburito, or like a suburi bokken or something like that. There was another question, and I remember reading it. So just before I go, I'm going to just quickly answer it. And I'll see if I can bring it up. It won't come up on the screen, but I don't want to miss it, because I do remember reading it. And I want to just make sure that I answer everybody's as much as I can. But I do remember reading one. And there it is. So it says, hi Andy, whenever I practice, sorry I missed this one out. Hi Andy, whenever I practice suburi, I get a lot of tension in the neck, and I must always stretch it after a couple of sets. I don't quite understand why, as I've been doing suburi this way for years, and I never did before have such an issue. I've always noticed that my head happens to be slightly tilted to the right. I generally use a heavy suburito. See, that's what's reminded me of this question, because we were talking about suburito. We've been out of the dojo for 4 months now, and it seems like there's not a gram of muscle left on me. Perhaps it could be relevant in this context. Could you please advise what might be the cause? So I'm not massively sure exactly what the cause is, of course, because I can't really advise without seeing it myself. But first thing I'd do is drop the suburito, right? Just suburito is the heavy shinai, heavy bokken for the suburi bokken. Just go back to doing it with a normal shinai for a bit. And secondly, there's probably just a little bit too much grip in your right hand, I expect. That's sort of something that definitely causes that. And otherwise, it's probably a lot to do with the fact that not out of practice, because you say that it depends how often you're practicing the suburi as well. I mean, but yeah, I mean, being out of the dojo and losing the kind of fitness is definitely going to affect that. I'm sure of it. So, yeah, I mean, try and build up the strength maybe a little bit. But I'm not the person to ask about that. So, but the one thing I would say is I'd just go back to using a normal shinai over a heavy Bokuto for now. Okay, that's it. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed. Look forward to seeing you next time. Shop at KendoStar. Bye bye.